evening everyone, and welcome to Saturday evening's Sport in Memories quiz. Tonight's theme, you'll be interested to know, is based on Cadwell Park. So it's the Cadwell Park quiz. So those of you who like your motor racing, cycle racing, etc. 15 questions of a mix of sports and nostalgia coming your way. So I'll do my usual. I'll go through the questions tonight, and then tomorrow night I'll read the questions again, give the answers, and then hopefully just add a little bit of background in where I can, and hopefully we'll enjoy it. So if you're ready for the first question tonight for the Cadwell quiz, question number 1, maybe a nice easy opener here. It simply says this: what anniversary did Cadwell Park celebrate in 2019? What was their anniversary that Cadwell Park celebrated in 2019? How many years were they celebrating? So that's number 1. Hopefully I've got a nice easy one for you there. Number 2, still fairly easy I think. What is the nickname for Cadwell's track? What is the nickname for the Cadwell Park circuit? What do people normally refer to it? That's number 2. I'm sure you've heard of it before. Number 3, we're getting a little bit further back in time now. The Coronation Day race at Cadwell in May 1937, had to be cancelled due to poor weather. There's a surprise. So which monarch at the time was the race day celebrating? So which monarch's coronation was the race day celebrating? So that's May 1937. Might be a bit before your time as well. That's question number 3. Question number 4. Question number 4. Cadwell was closed during the war years, but in which year did it finally reopen to the public again and start racing? Cadwell was shut during the war years, and in which year did it finally reopen for racing again? And that's question number 4. Number 5, going to the 1950s now, so fractionally more recent. The early 1950s saw the circuit of Cadwell extended to what new distance? In the early 1950s, the circuit at Cadwell was extended to what new distance? If you do it in miles, it's probably as easy as now. Most people do miles, not kilometres. That's number 5. Number 6, staying with the 1950s, the circuit's first car race was held back in 1953. But what class was this race? The circuit's first car race was held back in 1953, but what was the class of racing car that was racing that day? That's number 6. Number 7, moving more recent still, into the 1960s. In the early 1960s, another piece of land was purchased by Charles Wilkinson to extend the track. Which local MP helped in this purchase? Who was the local MP who helped swing it in favour of this purchase? So you've got to cast your minds back a little bit there to a former MP in the local area. Number 8. After the purchase of that land I've mentioned in question 7 in the early 1960s, the track was then extended to what new length? After the purchase of land in the early 60s to extend the track, what was the track extended to in miles? What was the new circuit length in miles? That's number 8. Number 9, bit of a wordy one this, but see how you get on with this. During the 1960s and 70s, Cadwell Park was host to some of the sport's top riders, including John Cooper, Mike Hailwood, Bill Ivey, Agostini, Phil Reed, but it was a local rider who often stole the show, pulling in crowds over 60,000 turning up to soak up the atmosphere of race day. So who was that local rider that gained so much popularity at Cadwell in those years, in those decades? What was the name of the local rider who was so popular at Cadwell back in the 60s and 70s? A bit harder, that one. Number 10, an interesting one for you here. Promising racing driver Roy James, known as the Weasel, often raced at Cadwell Park, but he was later arrested and jailed for his involvement in which crime? That's an interesting one. I'll read it again. Promising racing driver Roy James, the Weasel, often raced at Cadwell Park, but he was arrested and jailed for his involvement in what crime? That's an interesting one. A little bit harder maybe for some of you, that one. Number 11. In the late 1980s, and after 50 years of custodian, Charles Wilkinson sold Cadwell Park to who and what company? In the late 80s, and after 50 years as its custodian, Charles Wilkinson sold Cadwell Park to who? Maybe a little bit harder for you there. Maybe you remember that. That's number 11. Number 12. In 2004, which former racing driver was involved in the purchase of Cadwell Park? So it moved to another ownership. Can you remember the name of the racing driver? And if you're really good, you'll know the name of the company as well. That's number 12. Number 13, a little bit easier maybe here. What is the area of the track called where cars and bikes can become airborne? What is the area of the track called where cars and bikes can literally become airborne? Bit easier, that one. Number 14, we're going back in time again here. Due to the Suez Crisis, do you remember that? In 1956, Cadwell Park held a dope-only meeting. So many riders, because of that, had to convert their engines to run on what? Due to the Suez Crisis in 1956, Cadwell Park held a dope-only meeting. Many riders had to convert their engines for this to run on what? So that's number 14. And the last one on this little nostalgic journey through Cadwell's history. In more recent years, the British Superbike Championships have been one of the biggest events at Cadwell Park. But which local lad won the 1991 British Superbike 750 time trial F1 Championship? What was his name? In more recent years, the British Superbike Championship has become one of the biggest events at Cadwell Park. But which local lad won the 1991 British Superbike 750 time trial Formula 1 Championship? Who was that rider? So, that's a little whiz through Cadwell Park history. Now, I'm sure there's a question that I haven't asked that you were hoping I would, because there's a lot of material that we could have talked about. Might do another quiz in a few weeks' time on some more Cadwell Park. I'll go through the questions tomorrow night, and in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed that quiz, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye for now.